Convener of the Revolution Now movement, Omoyele Sowore, was detained by the Nigerian Immigration Service at Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos yesterday upon his return from the United States. Sowore raised alarm on his X page. His passport was seized and no reason was given for his detention, with officials citing instructions from higher authorities. However, Sowore was later released and his passport was returned to him. He confirmed his release on social media. His detention sparked an angry reaction from some Nigerians present at the airport as they began a protest till he was released. We're joined this morning by the convener of Revolution Now movement, Omoyele Sowore. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for bringing me.
So can you please walk us through what exactly happened to you yesterday at the airport from the point where you were detained up until your release?
Well, I arrived in Nigeria like every other person on United Airlines from Washington, D.C. and queued up to get my passport checked upon, and was waiting to enter into the country. And my passport was put aside by an immigration officer. And when I asked what it was, he said there is a lien on it. What I mean a lien is something, a notation that I should be stopped until they get clarification from Abuja. And I asked what was the reason. He said, well, we have a watch list here. So I quietly sat beside them and waited for them to get their clarification. And they were making phone calls. And after a while, they came and said, do I have a waiver to enter the country? And I thought that was the most terrible question to ask of a citizen. What's the meaning of a waiver? I was expecting it, because I'd obtained in advance a signal from the DSS that I was on a wait list since August 4th. It wasn't that I was on a wait list, but that my status had been upgraded to the most extreme. That is, each time I enter the country, I must be arrested, my passport says, and my baggage taken and detained and taken to the DSS office at the headquarters. So, but after a while, I tweeted about my circumstances, and they came and said they're still talking to them, moved me to their main office. At that point, I knew it was going to take a while. So, but I just sat there, and after a while, they came and said, this has been resolved. And I left to go get my bag. When I got to my baggage place, one of my bag was missing. So when I complained to the airport, the airline, that my baggage was missing, because I was quite, at that point, wondering why, of all the over 300 people that arrived, my baggage went missing. So, and I tracked it, discovered that it arrived Lagos. So I left and met some of the friends and colleagues who were waiting at the airport for me, and we left.
No, is any word on your bag? Is this still missing?
Yeah, eventually get help from the airline. They said somebody had changed my bag, took it home, and returned. But I took a video of the bag that was changed. There's no similarity between my bag, so it couldn't have been a mistake. But I don't want to pay more mind to that. I took my bag and allowed them to release the bag to the other person. So I have my bag now.
Okay. You have your bag, and you've checked, nothing is missing.
I don't know, but I just took the bag and went to sleep because it was a long day yesterday.
Was there any proper reasons given for your passport being held for that time?
No, they didn't explain it. They just said, "Oh, we've clarified." And but like I said, I wasn't surprised. I got the CG of immigration had come out during the end of bad governance protest that some people were on the watch list. And I think we've had this conversation between me and your crew from the U.S. that I think they were referring to me. If anybody would be on their watch list, I know I'll be number one. And then having obtained a signal directly from the DSS showing that I had been upgraded as of August 4th, I knew that they meant business. But then, we're talking about the same set of people who went arrested and detained people who are protesters. Some of them who were not protesters, and charged them for treason. So I'm not surprised.
Were you also expecting the same charge when you land? Because you said you already knew that this was going to happen.
I'm always prepared for anything. Like I said, being on the watch list has been since 1992. I've been on the watch list of the Nigerian government since I left since my days in the university. So, and I was charged for treason for a similar offense in 2019. I'm not worried that they might come up with a similar thing. And having done what they did yesterday, I know they must be up to a lot more.
All right. Do you also think that them coming back to you to tell you that the matter has been resolved was because somebody maybe made a call or because you had raised alarm on social media?
Well, I'm sure a lot of people, I did tweet and also contacted my lawyers and contacted a number of our colleagues that I'm being detained. I'm sure calls were made. I have no doubt. They engage in conducts that are very embarrassing. Some of them, after I left, were saying, but you knew you were on watch list, why did you come back? Which is the most foolish question anybody could ask a citizen of Nigeria. Except we are saying that it's a crime to be a citizen. What's the meaning of watch list? If I'm watch listed, what is exactly the reason you watch listed me? Am I engaging in terrorism? Am I a drug dealer? None of these explanations were offered. If you watch list somebody, when you bring them in, what in the US or in other places they call it secondary inspection. But they will explain to you if there's a secondary reason. They will tell you this is the reason why we pulled you in.
Right.
Yeah.
So because I've been through that a lot in the US in part, anytime I go in and come out because of my status, sometimes they will ask me, why after all these years are you not a citizen of the US? Subtly, and I would say, no, I don't want to be a citizen. I'm a Nigerian.
Okay.
So
in a way, I think we can all agree that this is linked to the End Bad Governance protests.
I think I have had a lifelong issue with successive governments in Nigeria. So it's not, I think it's a string of years of activism and being against bad governance. But I think this particular one is linked with the End Bad Governance protest, and I suspect it has to do with the protest that has been planned for October 1.
All right,
so,
before we get to the October 1st protest, I want us to talk about the End Bad Governance protest. I think everybody clearly would know your stance on the treason charges that have been leveled against the End Bad Governance protesters. But how do you foresee this ending, this case with the 10 citizens who have been charged with treason? How do you see it ending? Do you think that with more activism, anything will change? Do you have faith in the judiciary for it to maybe go the way that you will prefer?
I cannot even believe, and this belies the question about faith, that anybody in the Nigerian judiciary would entertain treason charges against protesters. And I have said it publicly, that I'm appalled by the position of not only the prosecutors, but the judge, who accepted to sit over a case in which he himself said in open court, I don't think this thing warrants treason. But, I'm going to grant them bail. He granted bail with conditions that could not be fulfilled. So what the Nigerian government officials do with these bogus charges is to obtain conviction because they know they cannot succeed at trial. Because even the worst kangaroo judge in the world would ask you for evidence.
Yeah.
Yes, let me tell you, in 1994, I think, Femi Falana and Olusegun Mayegun of NANS of those days, under the military, were equally arrested and charged for treason for a protest that I think was in 1992. Yes, Babangida Must Go protest we did. And they came and ransacked the university, arrested Mayegun, arrested Falana. But even the magistrate at Kuje prison granted them bail at that time under military rule and said, this is rubbish. He granted them bail, I think, during their first appearance. To answer your question about what will happen, nothing will happen. There's no case here. But their strategy must be known to the public, is to drag the case on for as long as it's possible, so that those people, these victims, will be so inconvenienced, and they will discourage others who might want to exercise their rights in the future. It is what they did to me in 2019. They charged me for treason too. Couldn't present a scintilla of evidence for 5 years. They restricted me to Abuja. A judge restricted me to Abuja. Same thing. And she granted me bail on conditions that I could not fulfill. And when we came back and asked for her to reverse herself, Justice Ijeoma Ojukwu was her name, she was asking, you mean Sowore doesn't have 100 million naira to deposit as a bond in this case? Femi Falana was like, Sowore is not a thief. Where would he get 100 million naira to put in the bank account of the judge, of the courts, when he hasn't committed any crime? And the people who are stealing, the multi-billion dollar thieves, you are granting them bail in this court. You are granting them the right to go for medical treatments abroad. The people who destroyed Nigeria hospitals, you are giving them legal rights to go. But this woman, the judge at that time, restricted me to Abuja for 3 years. I was the third person in the history of Nigeria to be restricted to a city. First person being Pai Modu, a labor leader during colonial era. Then Obafemi Awolowo, who was restricted to Lekki. And I'm not talking about the Lekki here.
Yep.
The Lekki I'm talking about is inside Lagos. It's closer to Ondo State, the real Lekki. And if you still go there today, you will wonder why people were so wicked in Nigeria that they will restrict somebody to such a place. Yeah. And then the third person was myself. 2019, I spent 3 years in Abuja, unable to leave Abuja. So this is the continuation of this kind of judicial misconduct. And I call it misconduct because these are things that ought to be investigated. People ought to be punished. I mean, judicial officers, the prosecutors who wrote this, the attorney general who signed off on it, the judges who accepted to rule on this. These are the people that should be tried for treason. And I mean it. It's treasonable for government officials, the president, the attorney general, to connive together and hang very egregious crimes on citizens who are merely exercising their fundamental rights to be heard in any society. It's treason. That's why Donald Trump was impeached in the U.S., that he gave away the rights of his people for business reasons with Russia in Ukraine. You remember his first impeachment. So our leaders ought to taste this, but, the problem is that we don't have leaders.
Yeah. Have you been in contact with any of these persons? The ones who have been
I haven't. I've been in touch with them because we've been arranging legal representation for them. We've been engaging in advocacy. I would be in court too for cybercrime next week in Abuja. There was a court case brought against me for cybercrime as far back as 2021. This is part of what we're talking about. And it had to do with the police conniving with one Senator, Ned Nwoko, and arraigned me for, criminally libeling him for a story written by Sahara reporters. And I went to the judge, why are you wasting your day? You have a docket that should be full of terrorists, corrupt people, and you are engaging in this for hours and hours. We've been on that one since 2021. So this is part of the judicial abuse that must be corrected. Since we can't correct it by going to court, we will correct it by advocacy and protest and revolt.
Okay. Let's talk about the Fearless in October, because I know everyone had their views on the End Bad Governance protest. Is the Fearless in October still, being planned?
It's not that it is still being planned. It's always been planned. It was planned immediately after August End Bad Governance. And it was meant to continue because the government did not react or address any of the issues, the 15 issues that were requested in August. So it's not that it's been planned. It has always been in the offing and is currently undergoing whatever you want to call it, planning and education and mobilization, conscientization, all those levels. So it's going ahead. And I want to make it very clear here that whether I participate or not, and I'm addressing our security people now, it's going to happen. It's just like the one in August. I wasn't here, it happened. Even the 2019 protest that I was arrested for revolution now happened even though I'd been arrested 2 days before the protest. So nobody can stop it.
What's the duration for this protest?
I only know that it will start on October 1. I don't know when it will end.
What's the reason, for this protest?
I just said it. Nigerians are tired of suffering.
Yeah, because if we just did the End Bad Governance protest,
you said did you participate?
Nigerians.
Oh, okay.
If that just ended on the 10th of August, 2 months later, there's another one your schedule.
Did you know
is this going to be every 2 months?
Did you know that in 2023 in France, French workers protested for 6 months non-stop?
I remember.
Yes. So why are you complaining about 2 months when there's still hunger, starvation?
No, it's not. It's
corruption?
not the time. No. It's not the time.
What I'm saying is that even the
out,
timing that's been put out there,
Yeah.
a lot of people are complaining that we shouldn't announce dates, that it should happen spontaneously. And we've said it that anybody who feels that they're cheated, they feel a burden of bad governance, they can't buy gasoline, they can't pay their band A or whichever band they put you for electricity, you can't pay school fees, you feel being strangulated by the government, either by economic policies or political policies, because I heard you discussing elections in Edo State, and already people are saying this is going to end up the same way it has always ended up, a compromised election. If you're feeling any of this, you are at liberty to start whenever you want. But as an organization that I've been part of, but this is how we've always done protests since I've been engaging in civil advocacy to bring about social change.
Will the protest be a peaceful protest, the October 1st protest?
I've never been engaged in a protest that's not peaceful, but it is beside the point, because sometimes I think we address this as if we're kids.
Now, why I'm asking this is
when
because
a protest is announced and people say they want to march, it's already known that it's peaceful.
All right.
It is the government that you should be asking the question, are they going to allow citizens to freely and peacefully express themselves?
we saw what happened in the North with the last protest,
Yes.
the End Bad Governance protest, and how it took some measure of a different turn in the North, where we saw numbers of people. Unfortunately, lives were lost in the North.
Yeah.
How can we guarantee that there will not be a recurrence of that?
You
at
should
October
ask the
1st
government. It's the police that kill people.
protest.
It's the police that kill people. The protesters didn't kill anybody. They didn't kill themselves. It's the police. I know you want to ask, you want to direct questions to whether there were some kind of looting and all that, but that itself, when you properly investigate, was also carried out for political reasons and where it happened. Because the protesters in Kano were peaceful. They protested and even met the governor. And then they said some APC faction the next day went and looted. And then they continued, even on a Saturday, you saw that very unfortunate incident where protesters were carrying leaves, which is a sign of peaceful protest. And police just drove an armored personnel carrier into them, shot at them, killed people. So those acts of violation or violations were carried out by the state. So whenever you have the police PRO, the IG, or whomever you talk to in the police and security force, ask them why they are killing and wounding innocent protesters, not me. Yes.
That's an important question to ask. I think I've always tried to stress that there needs to be a method of operation that the police sticks with. Whenever
it is the right of Nigerian citizens to protest.
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
It is the duty of security agencies to protect the citizens. It's their duty.
I want to ask, and that's why I was going back to the End Bad Governance protest. What is the Fearless in October meant to achieve? What should be the end goal? Is it, a change in government? Is it, a reduction in price of petrol? Is it, a cancellation of the current constitution?
We have 15 initial demands, and we added 2 to it, which is the release of all the detained persons, and we also asked for the removal of the IG of police. He has no business continuing in office after what he did during August. The Minister of FCT and the police commissioner in FCT, because of their egregious acts during this last protest. The only thing we had after the protest was the removal of the NIA director and the DG of DSS, who we believe should have been jailed by now because of the atrocities committed by him in office. But that's a conversation for another day. But we have 15 clear demands, and we have shared this with you from time to time. So those demands are still in operation. And see, you mentioned something just casually now, and I think this is part of how the narration is, framed to say that, these people are asking for a change of governance. And I want to make it very clear. It is the right of Nigerian people to decide to hire and fire people in government. So if the people feel that the government is no longer serving the purpose for which it was elected or selected, it is the right of the people to go out there and say, we don't want the government. So this continuous blackmail from the government, and sometimes the narrative from the media that, oh, are you trying to change the government? It's
No,
not
but
necessary.
Maybe
agree.
it's the mode of the change. It's not just changing the government, also the mode of the change that is being advocated for. Because
the
there were the
mode of
conversation
change
about
of government under a democratic setting is election. But once the elections are compromised, that's number one. Then the government
National Assembly?
itself, who in the National Assembly of today in Nigeria do you expect would work for your own interests? People who are going about collecting contracts, buying brand new cars, people who do not even debate before they approve laws. Yeah. So you don't expect. So, I think we're at the point where all Nigerians, or majority of Nigerians, I won't say all, have agreed that this can't continue.
So if you're saying now that the only way to change the current administration, the current presidency, is through elections, and you cannot, you don't have faith in the National Assembly, is that not in any way, can that now be interpreted to mean that when the citizens go to the street to ask for a change of governance, that in a way they're inferring that maybe they want a military government or they want it to be done legally? What options are there? What options are you asking for?
I think you're dealing with people who, when I say people, us, who have been through a lot of governments. I've been through 7 presidents in my lifetime in Nigeria. Some of them military, civilian, or people you call military people who wear civilian clothes, like Buhari and now Tinubu. But the truth is that you cannot gaslight the public to determine how an event that has not even been undertaken will take place. So the hard conversation we need to have is if government is serving its purpose in the country, and if there needs to be a change of direction. And how people want to do that is up to the people, and that's what democracy is about. And the decision, a democratic decision, may not happen according to the predictions or expectations of those who are carrying out oppression. So if you are versed in the business of oppression, you might think that people need to wait for 4 years. That's your own expectation. But the people themselves might decide that they can't take this anymore, and they can't continue, and decide to go in a different direction. This has happened so many times already, even in recent history. In
Nigeria?
Across the world. It may not be in Nigeria, but across the world, to show that when people are dissatisfied with those in government, they can send whatever message they want to them, or they can decide on any course of action that might free them from oppression.
Yeah. So, I agree with your points, on change of government, and the way that it is used as a way to paint a protest, in a certain way, to of course, permit a clampdown on the protest. I agree with all of that, and of course the rights of the Nigerian people and all that. The reason I was asking that is because I want Nigerians to be clear on what the protest hopes to achieve, so that we'll know whether it has been a successful protest after 10, 15, 20, 30 days, maybe 6 months, I don't know how long, or not. But before we go, I want you to quickly respond to something. People say that Omoyele Sowore is simply a tool of the current administration to control the opposition. So, he plays the role of, a seeming opposition, but it's not necessarily an opposition, person. It's just to control the opposition conversations across Nigeria. To ensure that it doesn't go beyond the
Who are these people who say that?
I might see those comments every now and then.
Well, a lot of comments will come in the course of political action, social movements. People get painted in different ways. I'm not here to worry myself about those things. But if people say those things, there is an opportunity and a chance for themselves to create the real opposition that they like to see. Are you getting my point? And I do not have to be the leader of that opposition. I'm not even trying to be an opposition leader, as it is coined. I'm not. That is a political position reserved for people who want to have conversation with those in government. Those are people who confer legitimacy on the system. Opposition leader in Africa is a person who comes and make, public presentations or position known, and then they go and drink tea with those people. You'll be surprised that some of the people who are saying this are actually the ones who are in bed with those in government. You'll be shocked. Well, you shouldn't be shocked, because that's what they do, is that they will be the ones who are in bed with them, and then they will blackmail others. But you know, in my lifetime, and I don't need to keep repeating this because it's not a job that I applied for, and it's not a job from which I hope to retire or has a retirement date. I have seen enough not to pay attention to or to pay mind to this. You know, people said this, people said that. People are going to keep saying things that suits their own sentiment, that suits where they stand. Sometimes people say things that suit their own fear. So they want to play that fear on you. When I was in the US, right, and I remember talking to one of your reporters in the studio from my US base, and the question is, people said you have run away. You were just controlling the opposition. Now, that time, they said I'm opposition, but an opposition on exile. I'm here in your studio a few days later, or maybe weeks later. The argument is that they say you are control opposition. You know, the truth is that they're saying, you know the reason why they're saying that is because they actually don't want anybody opposing the contraption that is called government or governance in Nigeria today. But if anybody feels different or contrary to what we do, what I do, there's an opportunity to create real opposition, and they should do that. But like I said, you'll be surprised or shocked to find out that those who say that are exactly the people who are in bed with the current regime, or have always been in bed with government. That's the sad reality about Nigeria.
Okay. Omoyele Sowore, well, welcome back to Nigeria, and thank you very much for stopping by and speaking with us today. We look forward to seeing you again. And of course, you know, as we approach the 1st of October, we'll also continue the conversations leading towards the Fearless in October protest. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.